Welcome to my podcast. I'm Christine Schultheis, intuitive coach and constellation facilitator. And in this podcast, I invite you to join me on a journey into the world of constellation work. I share my personal experiences, touching moments from my practice, and the unseen connections that deeply shape our lives. Some questions cannot be answered by the mind, and yet somewhere an answer is waiting for us, beyond thinking, in the space where we meet ourselves again. That's exactly where this podcast will take you, step by step, story by story. I'm glad you're here. When life stops you. Welcome to this very first episode. I'm so glad you're here and that you are joining me on this journey. Today I want to take you back to the beginning, to the place where everything started. I want to share with you how I found constellation work and why it has touched and transformed my life so deeply. I first encountered this work in 2008. Looking back, that was the turning point of my life. At that time, I had reached a place where nothing seemed to move anymore. Everything had come together all at once. I had just come out of a difficult, toxic relationship. Then came the deep shock of an unwanted pregnancy and its termination, followed shortly after by an emergency surgery in which both of my fallopian tubes had to be removed to save my life. In that moment, it felt as if everything that had carried me up to then had collapsed. I kept asking myself why. Why during my first hospital stay just a few weeks earlier, no one had discovered what was really going on. Even back then, my symptoms hadn't been taken seriously. I remember being in unbearable pain and still keeping quiet for far too long. I didn't show how bad it really was. I didn't insist on a deeper examination. I let it happen when they dismissed me as overly sensitive. Even today, I still shake my head when I think of it. At the end, I could hardly walk because my whole body was one single pain. And still, I had myself too much under control. Instead of operating immediately, they scheduled my surgery at the end of the regular list. Almost too late for me. The next morning, the professor who had operated on me came into my hospital room. He looked at me seriously and said, "You came here as a seriously ill woman, and you were far too composed. A few hours later and we wouldn't have been able to save your life." Those words stayed with me. They went straight to my heart. Only then did I realize how close it had been. When my parents came to visit me the next day, I finally understood the pale, shocked look on their faces. It was the look of two people who had almost lost their daughter. And in that moment something became very clear to me. All my life I had been holding myself back, not taking up space, keeping it together, functioning, staying in control, and crossing my own boundaries again and again. It was as if my body had said, "Enough, stop, now you have to look." Only later did I understand life wanted to stop me so that I would finally stop myself. After I recovered, my path led me to constellation work. At that time, I didn't really know what to expect. I just had this deep feeling, there's more, something I need to understand, but not with my mind. And indeed, there, on this very first constellation weekend, I experienced the magic of constellation work for the very first time. There was a man who, without knowing it, carried the heavy fate of his Jewish ancestors who had been murdered during the war. he carried their pain in his heart as if it were his own, out of love, out of belonging. There was a young woman who had lost her father as a teenager. She couldn't step into her own power because she didn't allow herself to fully take life, as if she had to stay loyal to her father through her sadness. In those moments, I began to understand what constellations reveal, that so many of us carry something that isn't truly ours, that we follow someone in our family, a fate, a pain, a guilt, often out of love or an unconscious loyalty. And that this love, though pure in its intention, can sometimes hold us back from really living our own life. And then came my own constellation. I found answers to why my last relationship had been so traumatic and why I had become so ill. I was able to say goodbye and find peace with my unborn daughter, whose loss I had never truly grieved. In that moment, I understood. Some questions cannot be answered by the mind, but they do find an answer when we have the courage to look. For those who may have never experienced a constellation, it's not a conversation, it's an experience. People step into roles for family members or for certain aspects of a theme, and they begin to sense what is really happening in the system. It's often beyond explanation how clear and tangible these dynamics become. Sometimes the right words simply appear in the room, sometimes tears fall, and something inside finally lets go. What fascinates me most is that constellations are not about guilt. They are about understanding and acknowledgement. When we see who or what is still acting within us, the whole system can relax, and life begins to flow again. Even today, many years later, I'm still in awe of this work. Each constellation touches me deeply, because every time someone finds their true place again, every time peace becomes tangible, it feels like a small miracle to me. Those are the moments that remind me why I do what I do, why this work has never let go of my heart. And that's what this podcast is about. I want to take you on a journey into the world of constellation work, into this world beyond thinking, where we suddenly feel what is truly at work within us. I want to touch you, inspire you, and maybe walk a small part of your journey back to yourself together with you. In the next episode, I'll dive a bit deeper into the foundations. What actually happens in a constellation? How does it work? And why does it reach us so deeply even when we are only watching? I'm so glad you're here. If this episode touched you, I'd love for you to subscribe or share it with someone who might need to hear these words. Because sometimes all it takes is one single impulse to set something in motion, within us and within our lives. Until next time, I'm Christine Schultheis.